Okay, so a few weeks ago I made a video about this building here, St. Paul's Cathedral, and essentially it was just a hyperlapse going back and forth across Millennium Bridge, and it got a ton of traction on Instagram and TikTok, and I had a lot of you guys asking how exactly I did something like this. So I thought, why not just save you guys the effort of trying to look it up, and instead I'll just create an informative YouTube video to show you guys exactly how I went about doing this, and I'm also going to chuck in a few tips for you. So I hope you enjoy the video, guys. Okay, so for those of you that aren't too familiar with the term hyperlapse, or who might not know what it is, if you think of a video is essentially a series of individual frames or images put together in a sequence to form one video. And with a hyperlapse, you're essentially shooting those individual frames manually yourself, and you can get a lot more creative with it. So I like to think of a hyperlapse sort of as a moving time lapse. Typically you tend to sort of take pictures and move towards a certain subject, whereas with a time lapse you're kind of stuck in one position. And to be honest with you, that is probably the most terrible explanation of what a hyperlapse is. So I think what would be better is if I literally just show you how I shot that hyperlapse, so you can get a better idea of what exactly a hyperlapse is. So you can just about see the tip of the shard just there. So I think I'm going to go create a hyperlapse of the shard, because I think the shard will make quite a cool subject, and I think it should look pretty cool. So yeah, let's go. It always makes me laugh when people do B-roll clips like that. It's only a matter of time before someone gets their camera stolen. Anyway, we have come to London Bridge here. I know, very original location, but I think just to sort of show you a template, an example of the best way of doing this, I thought this is probably like the most suitable location. So yeah, let's just get straight into it. Okay, so to make your life a lot easier when you go out and shoot your first hyperlapse, or any hyperlapse in general, my first tip would kind of be to choose a location where you've got like a guaranteed straight line. So as you can see here, we're on a bridge, and obviously it goes all the way down to the end and it keeps a relatively straight line. If you're shooting ones which we kind of have to change direction, that's just like another variable that you have to worry about, and it's probably going to make your life a lot harder when it comes to post-production. So I think when you're just starting out, go for something like a bridge or a path where you know you've got a straight line. And what I like to do is, as you can see here along the bridge, there is a line which I can follow, and that will kind of give me reassurance that I've kept in a straight line when I'm going from one side of the bridge to the other. So to begin with this hyperlapse, we've come to the other side of the bridge. Obviously we've got the shard on that side, that is going to be the main subject. So what I like to do is, first of all, always put your camera in manual so that the lighting and anything like that doesn't change too much. It will make your life a lot easier when it comes to editing, especially because you're going to be editing so many pictures. I've set my little focus mark to the smallest one so that I can focus on the same part of the shard every time. So what I'm going to do here is, I'm literally going to start along this line as I said, and I'm going to set my focus point to the tip of the shard. So I'm going to take one picture of the shard, and then I'm going to take one step forward, and I'm going to take a picture of the shard in the exact same position. The reason why I choose the sort of smallest focus point on the camera is so that I can ensure that I've got a really precise marker on the shard, and this will make, as I said, your life a lot easier when it comes to editing, because it will really help you when it comes to stabilizing the actual footage. So I'm actually going to use the viewfinder here because it's so bright. It means I can focus on the exact same part. I'm going to take a step here like this and take another shot. It's important to sort of stay at a continuous and consistent pace, because obviously you've got a lot of subjects that are moving and you need to stay consistent with them. So I'm literally just doing one step at a time, focusing on the exact same point of the shard, and it's a very time-consuming process, but it comes together really nicely in the end. so I've pretty much wrapped up the hyperlapse now. It ended up taking around 20 minutes of just straight walking. And I actually decided, I did one hyperlapse, and then I decided to come over to the other side of the road. I knew the exact same thing, but when I came over to the other side of the road, it meant that I got all the traffic as well as all the people. One thing I forgot to mention at the beginning of the video is that it's really important to have a lot of moving subjects within your hyperlapse, because it really sort of adds a lot of motion in them and it makes them like a lot more epic. So I would say it being busy is not necessarily a bad thing. If anything, I would recommend shooting when they're busy. But yeah, that was a pretty simple hyperlapse. I'm now going to go back to the computer and show you guys exactly how I go about editing the hyperlapse. Right, okay, so I'm not going to lie to you, the editing part of this is a bit of a process, but I'm going to show you guys what I think is the most efficient and quick way of doing so. So first of all, we're going to want to go ahead and import all of our photos into our Lightroom library. So I'm just going to drag them all in here, and as you can see they're here, so I'm just going to hit import. I think it's about almost 200 photos. Actually yes, 194 photos, and so we can quickly just scrub through them just to get like an idea of what it looks like, and it's looking pretty good to me. So obviously we're not going to edit every single photo individually. Thankfully with Lightroom there are some time saving features, so essentially we're just going to edit one photo and copy all of the settings across all of the images so that we have a nice consistent look. So typically what I do is I just like to apply one of my presets. I'm probably going to go over this one here, Cool Runnings. I use this one a lot during the day, but I'm going to desaturate some of the floor because it looks a tiny bit too orange. I don't know if you can see the difference there. And I'm going to reduce some of these highlights so we can retain a lot of that cloud detail. So in order to copy all of our settings across the images, you're going to want to click on the first photo here and then press Command or Control A on your keyboard, and then over here you can see we have this sync button. So if we click sync and click check all, and therefore we'll hit synchronize, and it will literally copy all of our settings across all of our photos. So if we scrub through all of our photos now, we can see that they all have this same edit. So now we need to export these photos into a sequence. So similarly, you need to press Command or Control A on your keyboard, then hit Command or Control Shift and E. And we're going to export these into a folder. So I'm going to call this folder the Shard Hyperlapse. And then we need to rename them into a sequence. So I have here Shard, and the start number is 1. So every photo will have a different number after it, so it's in sequence. So that makes it a lot easier, and then we just hit export and continue. So obviously depending on the speed of your computer, this will take a few minutes as it's exporting a lot of photos, but I'll check back with you once it is finished exporting. Okay, cool. So now that we've edited all of our photos individually, the next program we need to shift into is Adobe After Effects. And if you're anything like me, then you rarely touch this program. So brace yourselves, it is a bit of a minefield, but I'm going to try and do my best to show you guys how we can get into it. So this is our folder here with all of our photos. As you can see, they're numbered from 1 all the way down to the end. So you simply just drag this folder into our station on the left here, and we have all of the photos which will be imported. The next thing we need to do is we need to right click on this and click New Comp from Selection. And then you want to highlight both of these here. So we've got two things here, highlight both of them by holding Shift and clicking that one here. And then you want to drag them down into this new folder section here. So we put them into a folder together. And then you simply want to click on the top one here, the composition. You want to right click on that and click New Comp from Selection. And that should drag it into our timeline down here. So moving on to actually stabilizing our hyperlapse, we're going to be using the Tracker tab. If you cannot see the Tracker tab, then just go up to Window and hit Tracker, and then it should automatically pop up for you. So if we make sure our composition is selected down here, we're going to hit Stabilize Motion, and that should bring up this little point here, Track Point 1. So I'm going to invite you to zoom in because it is quite small, the track point, and maybe just make it a little bit bigger just for the ease of moving it. So basically, if you cast your mind back to when we're actually shooting the hyperlapse, I got you guys to make sure that you focus on a certain point of the frame each time you take a photo. So essentially we need to drag this box to where we were focusing on each frame. So if you remember with me, I was focusing on the tip of the shard in every single shot. So I'm going to drag this box right to the tip of the shard, just in here. That'll do. And I'm going to make this exterior box a little bit bigger. I'm going to make this box a bit bigger here just so it goes over. As you can see, the center of this box is right on the tip of the shard there. So this is basically going to instruct After Effects to track this point in every single frame. And then once we have found our point of interest, we're going to hit this button here. It is the Analyze Forward. Basically, once you hit that, After Effects is going to go ahead frame by frame, and that box should stay with the point that you have selected. Okay, so it's pretty much just finishing up tracking each individual frame now. It ended up taking around 5 minutes to do so. But once it has finished, we're going to come over and we're going to hit this apply button here and then simply just click OK. And you can see here that every single frame has been analyzed and stabilized. It's not the most stable thing in the world. Obviously, as you can see here, it is very jittery still. So what I'm going to do is we're going to right click over here and we're going to hit pre-compose and we're going to click move all attributes into the new composition. So once we do that, we can go ahead and apply a warp stabilizer. So if we right click on our composition here, hit track and stabilize and click warp stabilizer VFX. And I'm going to create one of about 15% and just hit enter. Okay, so after a little bit of After Effects magic, the warp stabilizer has successfully essentially stabilized the whole thing. Compared to what it was before, all jittery, the warp stabilizer has literally smoothened everything out. And we've got a nice smooth hyperlapse going like this. You can see how satisfying that is. There is like a couple more steps before we finish. You're more than welcome to leave it like this. But what I like to do is I like to add a little bit of a speed ramp and a bit of a motion blur. So I'm going to show you exactly how to do that now. So if we again right click on our composition and hit pre-compose, move all attributes into the new composition. This is because we can't apply a speed ramp onto a warp stabilized clip. So essentially we're just nesting that clip. Then if we go ahead and right click on our layer and hit time, and then we need to find enable time remapping. Sorry, I'm just remembering this. And then if we click, so the point where you want the speed ramp to start is where we're going to add our first point. So I'm going to add it in after about 1 second here. So I'm going to hit this little keyframe icon here. And then similarly, we need to find where we want the speed ramping to stop. So when we want it to slow down and go back to normal speed, and then we hit this little button here. Now, if we go ahead and drag and highlight the last 2 keyframes and then move these all the way down here, essentially this is normal speed here, then it goes super quick and then back to normal speed. So if I just quickly preview that now, it's going to take a little bit of a while to render. If I go and play that again, boom, there we go. Okay, so once we are happy with our speed, we're going to highlight all of these 4 keyframes and we're going to hit this little icon here, the graph editor. Essentially this is going to enable us to add a nice smooth arc to our speed ramp. So I'm going to click on this first one here. So this is the first speed ramp and I'm going to hit this little icon here and it will add a really nice smooth gradual speed ramp. And similarly, if we go to where it just goes from fast to slow, we're going to hit that icon here and we're just going to do the same. We can preview this, so if we hit play from the start, it goes boom and then it slows down quite smoothly. Yeah, I like that. Our final step is to add a bit of motion blur. So if we go to our effects and presets, if we type in CC Force Motion Blur and we just drag this onto our composition like this, and I'm gonna add the motion blur to 16 instead of 8. So once we have applied that blur, we can go ahead and preview it. As you can see, it's quite subtle, but I think it's quite necessary if you're going to be doing these types of videos, and I think it is like the final piece of the puzzle. So once we're happy with this blur and all the effects we put on during After Effects, we're just going to come up to File, and essentially we're just going to export this video. So if you click Add to Render Queue, in Output 2 you can click where you want to save. I'm going to leave it in the desktop, and then you're going to click Render. Right, okay, so I'm now going to invite you to go ahead and open up Adobe Premiere Pro. So we're going to want to import our After Effects video into Premiere Pro. Essentially what we're going to do here is we're going to replay the clip on like a bounce going back and forth. So if you drag in your clip here and you hit Option or Alt on your keyboard and drag it to duplicate it, we're going to right click on the secondary clip and go to Speed/Duration and simply just hit Reverse and hit Enter. Now as you see here, if we just press play, it goes all the way up, then all the way back down. And that is pretty much a really brief, quick rundown and overview of how I was able to create the hyperlapse. Now, I really hope that you guys did enjoy this video. Apologies if my tutorial skills weren't the best. I don't typically do things like this, but seeing as I had so many of you guys asking about it, I thought why not just show you guys the best I could on how I made it. So if you have any more questions, please feel free to drop them down below. And if you did enjoy this video, please feel free to subscribe. And if you found it useful, maybe drop a like on the video. That would really help me out. All of these photos were actually edited with my presets, which have just launched. So if you are interested, I'll leave a link down in the description. But yeah, I think I'm going to leave the video here, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.